Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
This is Mission Control, Houston.
Ignition sequence start.
I've been preparing for this all my life.
Here's Porter on hard and taking him to school.
What a great play by Jae'Sean Tate.
K.J. Martin climbed Bobon Mountain.
T-minus 15 seconds. Guidance is internal.
And you've seen tonight that we fought together, we stayed together, and it's about damn time, man.
6, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1.
What's up, and welcome to another episode of Locked On Rockets, the best and only daily podcast covering your Houston Rockets. As always, I'm your host, Jackson Gatlin, native Houstonian and partner at Apollo Media. Be sure to follow along on Twitter at JT Gatlin, the show, of course, at Locked On Rockets, as well as at Apollo HOU. And hey, if you enjoy what we do here at Locked On Rockets, do me a favor, hit the subscribe button wherever you listen to your podcast, Apple, Spotify, Google. Hit the subscribe button on our brand new YouTube channel. We just passed 1,000 subscribers, 1 week ahead of schedule, ahead of our July 15th goal for 1,000 subscribers. We already knocked that out of the park. Thank you so much. If you're one of the subscribers, if you've already hit the subscribe button, thank you. I sincerely appreciate it. Onward and upward. We're still looking to, keep knocking out the ceiling and keep going up. So if you're not subscribed yet, please consider subscribing. I would sincerely appreciate it. Now, today's episode is brought to you by Michelob Ultra at only 2.6 carbs and 95 calories. It's only worth it if you enjoy it. Now, today's episode is going to be really cool because in segments 2 and 3, we're actually going to be joined by Stephon Martinez, owner and head skills coach of Dig Deep Basketball. And we're going to kind of talk to him about what it's like to, be a skills coach, to work in player development, and to work closely with the Houston Rockets' own Jae'Sean Tate and some of the stuff that they've worked on, over the course of his career, and how he's improved, and, the areas they like to focus on when they do work out together and things like that. And just in general, how skills development kind of works. So really great conversation with Stephon coming up in just a second. But I want to spend this first segment. So first off, the Phoenix Suns, led by Chris Paul, are now up 2-0 in the NBA Finals. And the conversations that are going to be sprouting, that are already sprouting, especially in Rockets Twitter, right, regarding Chris Paul, and obviously the Rockets having traded him not even a full calendar 2 years ago, all of this stuff, right? It's going to bring up some old wounds. And all I can say is where I'm at is I'm happy for Chris Paul. And I'm happy for the Rockets moving forward that we have a new era of Rockets basketball to be excited about, with this exciting young core: Christian Wood, Jae'Sean Tate, Kevin Porter Jr., KJ Martin, Kyrie Thomas, Armani Brooks. I mean, you name it. We've got so many exciting young players to cheer for, and these, potential building blocks for a really good team moving forward. And then not only that, but there's the number 2 overall pick that we're going to be factoring into all of those guys that I just listed off. And I don't want to call it a revelation, but, and I can't sit here and be like, oh, my eyes have finally seen the light, because I was kind of treading like 60-40 for a while there, Mobley versus Green. But I think that our most recent episode, our film room session with Ali Kambijani, as well as the film room session that Jalen Green recently did with ESPN's Mike Schmidt. I'm now in the Jalen Green camp. It took me a little while to get there, but I'm finally in the Jalen Green side of the camp. I think he's the guy that the Rockets should draft. I was in a mock draft the other day, and when the Rockets number was called at pick number 2, I responded back and I said the Rockets are taking no phone calls. They are drafting Jalen Green, number 2 overall. Cade Cunningham clearly went number 1 overall in this draft, and I had somebody in the draft try to offer me, the Orlando Magic rep tried to offer me a bunch of stuff, and I was like, yeah, I'm not feeling that. So it took me a little while to get on the Jalen Green train, and it's been a long, weird journey for me, because I was lowest on Jalen Green out of all the top prospects. Started out Suggs, was really high on Mobley, and I'm still really high on Mobley. And if the Rockets decide that they ultimately want to go Mobley, I won't be upset by that. And I think that's the main thing to remember is as we've gone from it being kind of a peaceful discourse, it's still relatively peaceful, but I feel like it's gone from, okay, everybody really likes their guy and they're going to, they're parading around all the facts for their guy, be it Mobley or Green or whatever. And, it's gone from just supporting their choice, the person's choice, to instead of arguments about why they should pick XYZ guy, it's kind of turned into arguments of why they shouldn't pick the other guy. And so now it feels like we're kind of tearing down each of them, be it Mobley or Green, situationally in some of the conversations that I've seen on Rockets Twitter and whatnot. And that shouldn't be the case, right? Both of these young prospects are so exciting, so talented, so dynamic that whichever one the Rockets pick, we should be absolutely ecstatic for. I just so happen to now be in the Jalen Green camp. And I'm going to be honest, watching Devin Booker hoop is not helpful towards the Mobley Mob's cause. Like, it's just not. Watching that alpha level scorer be able to light up games and get a bucket seemingly at will when he absolutely needs to, it's not helpful. And I know that there's going to be like the contingent of the Mobley Mob that are still holding on for dear life. They're going to be like, well, what about DeAndre Ayton? Ayton's been great too. They're both great. That's the dilemma at hand, right? Is which one of them do you want to go with? And I think what it really boils down to for me is even though DeAndre Ayton and Devin Booker, one, they're not perfect identical meshes for Jalen Green and Evan Mobley whatsoever. But it just so happens that we're watching an NBA Finals with a young star scoring shooting guard, alpha scorer, and a young budding center who happens to be the defensive anchor for the Phoenix Suns. Even though Mobley and Jalen Green are different players, there's going to be comparisons drawn between these two sets of guys, I should say. But for me, ultimately, what it comes down to between Green and Mobley is even though I think Mobley has the truer, higher ceiling, and honestly, probably even a higher floor from the moment he steps foot on an NBA court, I think Jalen Green's ceiling is more attainable. So even if they both ultimately hit their max ceiling and say on a scale of 1 to 100, Mobley's ceiling is a 100 and Jalen Green's ceiling is a 90 or a 95, even though Green's ceiling is slightly lower than Mobley's, I think Green has a better chance of actually reaching that true ceiling. Everything that Evan Mobley projects to be is incredible, right? But I think there's a longer road ahead of Evan Mobley to truly realize all of those talking points when you talk about his game, about becoming, an incredible two-way elite force, being able to build up his body to, withstand NBA level physicality on the defensive end, as well as to be able to utilize his size offensively without losing what makes him so unique in his speed and, his ability to move laterally, things of that nature. There's just a lot of different things that I wonder if, I'm curious as to how they're actually going to pan out for Evan Mobley. And the thing is even if he doesn't reach his true ceiling, Evan Mobley is still going to be an incredibly dominant player, even at 70 or 80 or 85, whatever, out of that 1 to 100 scale that I just, arbitrarily threw out there. I still come back to Jalen Green. I think he is more than likely going to cap out at his true ceiling down the line. You listen to his interviews, you listen to how hard he works, what his teammates, what his coaches say about him. The fact that he came into the G League bubble and was really kind of a bad defender coming into the G League bubble and told his coaches, hey, I want to be a two-way player. I want to be better defensively. And you look at, a guy that's 6'6" with all that athleticism, all that drive to be the best, right? The comps that you keep coming back to are Michael Jordan and Kobe Bryant. I mean, it's tough, right? We haven't seen this level of, a mix of this level of athleticism and natural scoring ability and drive and determination and leadership, all the intangibles out of one guy in a while. And I think that's really hard to pass up on. So I'm firmly now in the Jalen Green side of things, 60-40 feeling Jalen Green, part of the Green gang. Now it finally happened. I finally caved, not because of anybody else's pressure, but because of my own research and, understanding of each of these players. And that's how it's supposed to work, right? Is I haven't really vacillated between these guys too much. I started Suggs, was Mobley for a very long time, and now I'm Jalen Green. I think I'm going to pretty much stick Jalen Green probably all the way through the draft. And I really feel like that's the direction the Houston Rockets are probably going to go. So coming up, we're going to chat with Stephon Martinez, owner and head skills coach for Dig Deep Basketball. Really, really fun interview coming up with Stephon. But before we get there, a quick message from our friends over at betonline.ag, because look, BetOnline is the fastest and easiest way to bet on all of your sports action. We got the NBA Finals, only 2 more games left, potentially. Suns in 4, right? Am I right? Can I get a Suns in 4? We got baseball season going on strong. They've also got NHL, UFC, MMA. I mean, they've got everything going on over at BetOnline. So don't sit on the sidelines anymore. It's time for you to get in on the action. You can do that using promo code LOCKEDON to receive a 50% welcome bonus on your very first deposit. Again, that's promo code LOCKEDON, LOCKEDON, for a 50% welcome bonus on your very first deposit. BetOnline, your online sportsbook experts. And continuing on here at Locked On Rockets, your daily podcast home for everything Houston Rockets basketball. Now, joining us for segments 2 and 3 of today's show is Stephon Martinez, owner and head skills coach for Dig Deep Basketball. Stephon, what's up?
Hey, man, I appreciate you having me on.
Absolutely. Well, I wanted to get you on because I think that on this podcast, we talk about basketball all the live long day. And I think it's really, an exciting opportunity to be able to talk to somebody like yourself who really, works in this niche and works so closely with players and from the player development perspective to try and get these guys to where they want to be or improve where they're currently at. And I want to get, a little bit of background on you and kind of how you got started on this journey and where kind of Dig Deep Basketball came from.
Yeah, so I'm originally from a really small area, about an hour south of St. Louis, Missouri, and played high school basketball, went on and played 4 years at college. And like I think most athletes, when they get done playing or towards the end, they start thinking about, okay, what am I going to do afterwards? Whereas, we should probably be thinking about it earlier than that. But towards the end of it, the basketball in my area had been suffering. It had never been a great basketball area, but I didn't think it was quite to what it had been in the last, 5 to 6 years before I left the area. So I honestly just started training some kids in the summertime, and I actually went back to the school I was at, and I coached there for a year. And then basically the next summer I just started continuing to train. And then I actually coached in college a couple more years. And basically I was coaching in college and then training in the summers, which gave me a great avenue to be on the sideline and also in the private sector. And then once I got done coaching in college in 2017, I was just like, there's only really 2 places in the world you can do just basketball. It's the NBA or in the private sector. In high school, you got to teach. In college, you got to recruit. And I really didn't want to do any of that. I wanted to just teach basketball and own a business, which those 3 years of coaching in college and then doing my own thing in the summers allowed me to become full-time in 2017. And I've been blessed over the last, I've been doing it 6 years, full-time, 4 years. Been everywhere. I've been, lived in Beijing, did clinics in Israel, Belgium, Australia. I've been all over the place, but been blessed with a lot of good mentors and even better players that are coachable and open to, developing their game.
Speaking of, the players, some of the guys that you've kind of worked with over the years, who are some of those notable guys that you've spent time with over the years since you've been doing this full time?
Well, recent notably, I work with Jae'Sean Tate. The city of Houston loves him, based on his effort and how he doesn't give up any possessions. And then a former Rocket, actually, Isaiah Hartenstein, who just came off a outstanding year with Cleveland. Started the year with Denver, but outstanding year with Cleveland, which I wish, honestly, there's probably some place for him in Houston. I think that he would do really well in Houston with the lack of interior depth that Houston has now. But former other Rocket, Rob Covington. And then I always have a slew of, 3 to 4 pre-draft guys. Freddie Gillespie with the Toronto Raptors. Previously worked with Devontae Graham, the Charlotte Hornets. Just a bunch of slew of guys. But my core group of guys, are 4 to 5 guys early in their career, still building. They're not 28, 29-year-old vets. trying to work to get their second contract, and always pre-draft guys come in. So, but I got a great group of guys, of young guys that are eager to get better.
So walk me through, Stephon, kind of give me a little bit of a glimpse into your day to day. So, you're showing up for work, what time do you start? Do you have, one day set aside for each guy? Do you kind of, meet with multiple guys throughout one day? How does that work? Just kind of walk me through your day to day a little bit.
Well, as far as like being on the court, like I have my things that I do that are probably an hour and a half prep before I get on the floor, but workout usually start at 8. I'm not going to go by what time guys work out. That's private information. But one of my guys, he likes to work out, at 8. So usually the day starts at 8. And then typically workouts run all the way through 3:30. And depending on the day, if a couple guys come back and want to shoot at night, you usually come back and shoot at, 6, 7 o'clock. So guys are working out anywhere from 5 to 7 times a week. And then they also have 85% of my guys have the same strength guy. At STF Houston, who does an outstanding job in the city in regards to prepping guys to have what is the most important skill in basketball, and that's availability. If you can shoot, dribble, and pass, but you're always hurt, it doesn't really matter. So they do a great job. But that's a typical day. I'm really lucky where I get all my guys, for 60 to 80 days every summer. It's not like they come in for a week and then leave for a week. Like they're really locked in Monday through Friday for, the dog days of summer where it can get very mundane and boring, but you have to buy that if you want the results when it comes to November through, hopefully May and June.
Now, when you get these guys who come into your, who come to you to work on something, is it, I guess, how do you evaluate certain skill sets for certain guys? Like, do they come to you and they say, I want to work on X, or do you maybe look at some film and you say, I think you can improve on, on this area of your game, or is it maybe a little bit of both? Is there a dialogue there? How does that work out?
I think it depends on the player. Like if it's a pre-draft guy, a young guy, like really what you're trying to do is create them a routine and then create them habits of staying away from the bad stuff that can be associated with being a millionaire basketball player. Whereas the older guys, like a guy like Jae'Sean, like we created a script last year we thought that would be beneficial to what we thought his role would be. And now he's a vet, right? He's the one playing the game. So there is dialogue like, well, what about this direction? Do we think we should go this direction? Like, yes, I'm the one that knows his game better than he does, but at the same time, there is some dialogue comparable to a pre-draft guy. I don't want to say it's dictatorship, but they don't really know. They're 19 to 21. They don't really know how the NBA works, what's going to be expected. At times there's a lot of humility. Like the vast majority of guys, you're not going to get the keys to an organization. You have to get in where you fit in and find a niche, and then you can kind of expand your role there. But regards to breaking, every player is a little bit different. I kind of attack mine the same way you do your business with a SWOT analysis. Strengths, weaknesses, opportunities, and threats. Strengths are pretty self-explanatory. Weaknesses, everybody has them, even your best players in the world. Opportunities would be something that's is within their skill set, their strength, but it's not being maximized. So like, for example, this player's really good at getting to the paint, but he doesn't have very many solutions when he gets there. So that would be an opportunity to maximize his strength, whereas a threat would be something that would like keep you off the floor. So maybe you can really catch and shoot, but you can't defend pick and roll. Well, if you can't defend pick and roll with the modern NBA, it's going to be hard to play. So that's kind of the basis of how you kind of structurally attack their offseason. But yeah, I watch every clip, every possession they play the previous year and even years before that to create a strategic plan. Because it's not just about working hard, but you got to work with purpose. We don't work out for 2.5 hours. It's anywhere from 50 to 60 minutes, but it's very high tempo and purposeful. You don't have to be dog tired to get better. So you gotta have purpose as well. But that's kind of like a little insight to regards to how I attack guys off seasons.
It's funny you mentioned SWOT analysis. Believe it or not, Stephon, this is not the first time that we've used SWOT analysis on this podcast. So that's actually incredible. I love that. That's great to hear. But you talk about kind of the differences, right? You get some of the pre-draft guys, and you get some more veteran guys like Jae'Sean. In your opinion, is it easier with the guys that are a bit more already kind of established, those veterans, or is it easier with the guys who the younger guys who maybe you might be able to mold them a little bit better? Which one do you prefer when it comes to training?
Well, Jae'Sean and Isaiah and like Freddie and a couple of the guys, like I got them when they were still rookies or young players. So I kind of put the analogy like comparable to working with someone that's 29, 30 years old, been in the NBA 6, 7 years compared to young guys. It's like learning a foreign language at age 6 or age 30. You'd rather learn at age 6 because you're a sponge. You're creating new habits. Comparable if you're older, you're trying to either adjust or get rid of an old habit and create a new one. So the younger guys are a little bit easier to create habits. Now, we're all talking about NBA players, not talking about the youth level, high school, middle school, and even maybe college. It's the small things. These guys there's only 450 full-time, not counting two-way jobs. And I try to put in perspective the guys, like, how many real estate agents do you know? How many teachers are there? Like this is a very fine niche world. There's only 450 of those full-time jerseys. So it's the small things. It's not like working with a player that can't shoot left-hand layups, like you can get, it's like a diet, like when people get on a diet, they lose weight quick like that. That's how it is when you're not very good. But when you're in really good shape and you still want to drop 6-7 pounds, it's tough. Like it's really about the details and the micros regards to how you attack your day. But I think it's easier to create habits at an earlier age than older, for sure.
Okay. All right. Well, Stephon, I want to continue this conversation with you. I'm already learning so much. This is really, insightful. This is, great to hear this from a professional like yourself. And I want to get into some nitty gritty questions, get some really, some specific answers on how you approach certain things. And we're going to get there after a quick message from our friends over at Biltbar. Because look, if you've never had a protein bar that you actually care about, right, you got to check out Biltbar. And the reason why these protein bars, they're not gritty or chalky like some of the other protein bars on the market. They're basically a candy bar that's jam-packed with protein. Every single bar is going to be low cal, low sugar, high protein, high fiber. And they've got so many great flavors to choose from. You got salted caramel, raspberry, coconut brownie chunk, mint chocolate chip. I mean, you really can't go wrong with any of the flavors on their menu. So be sure to visit BuiltBar.com and use promo code LOCKED15 for 15% off your very next order. Again, that's promo code LOCKED15 for 15% off at BuiltBar.com. And final segment here at Locked On Rockets, your daily podcast home for everything Houston Rockets basketball. Continue our conversation with Stephon Martinez of Dig Deep Basketball. Now, Stephon, I want to kind of know that, like, when you're starting out with a player, how do you gauge, I guess, improvement? And that's kind of a broad term. So I want to know, do you kind of create a baseline of like where they're at in a certain category or with a certain skill and then build from there? How does that work in your eyes?
Well, I think the pre-draft guys and the NBA guys are a little bit different. The pre-draft guys, the baseline is, I guess it's on both sides, but how coachable are they? How open are they to new things? And secondly or thirdly is their psychological. I think that players and coaches, everybody gets caught up in like, well, at the higher level you go, they're bigger, they're faster, they're more skilled. They're psychologically stronger. Their mental capacity is better. Their processing of information is higher because it is faster. It's a faster game with better athletes. So them able to process information, I think the pre-draft guys would tell you that the workouts are very like, do this, then do that, and do this. I say one time, understand it. And then on top of that, you got to make 5 out of 7 or 6 out of 8 or 7 out of 10. Once you get past that processing information, then it's, okay, how efficiently can you process information by being skilled? So, all right, you're working on this type of catch and shoot at a certain action. Like, can you process the information, but then can you be efficient within that action? Because the pre-draft is a little bit different, right? We don't have any NBA film from you to be based on. Whereas a guy that's in the NBA, it's based on results. And in this business, whether it's me or the NBA or even what you do, nobody cares about anything but results. And if you can get results, then you can get, better opportunities. And in basketball or sport, it's getting paid more and be able to help people outside of just yourself. So I think that be able to understand the processing information. And then once you're an NBA player, it's results. Like, okay, I did this well, I didn't do this well. This are my efficiency numbers on this. Okay, I need to build on that and then also be able to grow in a different area. So results.
So what types of drills in your experience, because you go through so many wide ranging different sets of drills, offensive, defensive, which ones do you feel like kind of, I guess, lend themselves a bit more so to like a real in-game environment or directly translate to the best results? Is there anything specific that you swear by? You make sure to run certain sets with certain guys. How does that work?
Decision making. The game is about making decisions. If you can shoot, dribble, and pass, but you don't know when to do them, it doesn't really matter. Or you do them at the wrong time. I tell the guys, maybe we'll work on something tactical like this certain type of finish, comparable to this type of finish because it's better. But if you're in the game and execute the finish, you don't get style points for a certain finish. So at times, the decision is more important than the skill. So always be able to make guys make decisions in the workout. Now, you have to get to a certain threshold of skill before we can make you make the decision whether to do this or to do that. So there's obviously what you call block training, where do this rep over and over. Nope, do it again. Nope, not right. Nope, do it again. Do it again. Do it again. But there's also times where we need to put you in a position to make a decision because that's how it's going to be in the game. It's not like some other sports that off the top of my head is thinking, if you hit you're playing baseball and you hit it to the left side infield of third base, you're not picking whether you go to first or third. You're not playing cat and mouse. It's run as hard as you can to first. Where basketball's not that way. If you drive it, you got to decide whether the help comes the committed early, the help comes late committed, or no commitment finish. So stimulating decisions. And then I would say within shooting is not making things so blocked. You got to have blocked where it's like, okay, make 20 at this spot. But you also got to have randomized shooting where shoot this shot, then this shot, then this shot on the floor, because that's how it is in the game. You're not going to take 20 corner threes in a row. Now, you need to have those reps to make sure that you're doing the same shot the same way every time, but you also need to make it randomized so it feels more game-like.
So when it comes to those reps, right? You're talking about, the block reps of, take 20 of this shot or 50 of this shot. Is there like a multiplier that you have in your head for if a guy hits, all right, X number of these shots, you think he's going to be able to hit X number in a real game situation, or do you not concern yourself with it from like a statistics perspective like that?
Well, we try to hover at 70% on catch and shoots. Finishing, we try to hover more around 80 to 85. In my experience, I think that I've had players that shoot 70, 75, and then they shoot 40 to 44 in the game. Whereas I have guys shoot 70, and then they shoot 30 to 32. So, but a lot of that can be based on rhythm and where you're getting the shots and what kind of pass it is and that type of deal. But we try to hover around 70. We rarely start the baseline of 5 out of 7, then it goes to 7-10, then it goes to 10-14, and then it goes to 14-20. And then it hovers around, 17-25, because those are bigger sample sizes. Okay, you can make 5-7. Okay, can you maintain that same percentage at a bigger sample, 7-10, 10, like I just said? So it builds up from that. But I don't just start a player at 70. If it's a player that's really starting to develop how to shoot, like Isaiah Hartenstein, he wasn't allowed to shoot any threes at Houston. He can shoot the ball now. He hovers at 70% in his workouts, and at some point in his career, he's going to be shooting 4 to 5 threes a game. He's only 23 years old, so it's like reverse engineering that. Like he only shot 4 threes this year for the season, 6, 2 for 6. But that's the most threes he made in his career. But now people are like, okay, eye test wise, because we really developed it, it looks better. So sometimes in the NBA, if it looks okay, they'll let you shoot it. But a guy like that was at the bottom of trying to figure out how to shoot, we don't start him at 5-7. Maybe we start him at 3-5, 4-6, 2 out of 3, and then as you build it up, we try to move the sample size up with the percentage.
So I do want to circle back to that decision-making, point that you brought up earlier, because I think that's so fascinating, and it kind of falls into one of those, I feel like sometimes with sports, right, you get, people, fans especially, get a little bit too caught up with like the box scores and the advanced stats and all that. When basketball, there's a game, there's so many elements that can't be quantified. You can't look at a box score or look at an advanced stat and be like, oh, that guy is, good at XYZ. And I think decision making is one of those where it's tough to quantify. But I want to know from you, like how do you build that ability besides, actual like real in-game reps, be it, 1-on-1, 3-on-3, 5-on-5s? I mean, are there any specific drills that you put in place to try and, really build up a player's, ability to make those decisions on the fly and really grow that part of their game?
Well, I think I briefly said it earlier. Like, I think you first have to tactically work on the ability to make the right play in that decision. Okay, I'm really good at driving right, but I can't pass on my right hand. It's bad. It's like, okay, well, let's develop your right hand, because you get to that spot, but you don't have the tactical skill to make that pass, or whatever skill set it is. It's like being skilled in that decision before you're able to make the right decision. It's like, okay, I made the right decision, but I threw the Shaq and the full pass. I threw it in the so I think first you have to work on that. And players now are so visual, like I am right now. I'm on my phone for this pod. Is they have to see it to believe it. And they're not just going to believe it. One, they may not believe it. And for two, they might believe it, but then when you correct them in it, they can't get a imagination for what it's supposed to look like. Like, even in workouts, not for social media, but I might just take a quick video of 3 to 4 seconds of you doing it, never post anywhere, and that's not for that reason, and just show them, and they'll be like, oh, you're right. Okay. All right. I see what you're saying. But me just saying, no, do it again. Not quite right. It's a little tougher. So to backpedal, I think work on the tactical skill within the decision, and then you can try to put them in a position to make the right decision with their skills being, good enough to make it.
Okay. And I guess that was kind of what I was trying to build up to was, because I do, completely hear you on, blocking and getting everything just right to where the skill is there, but then it's the actual element of being able to make those decisions in, a real fast-paced environment. Is that something, do you guys run like 5-on-5 sets to be able to do that? Do you run, what kind of specific things do you get into once you do build up that skill to that point? How do you try to, I guess, mimic some of those in-game reps? Or is it one of those where it's just like, all right, we've got the skill there, now go out and do it in a real game?
Well, I think you do need to play 2s and 3s and 5s, but I'm lucky enough in my workouts, I have, 3 to 4, maybe even 5 people helping me. So I'm able to, throw it to a player like, okay, drive it downhill, read the tag there, the help defender there. If they do this, and you got to do that. If they do this, there's defenders out there, and they're making you make decisions. It's not me. What I tell the guys is scripting it, or do this, then do that, then do this. I'm not telling them what to do on the help. They're going to make their own decision on, do they help or they not help? If they do help, and then he helps, then what are you supposed to do? So really simulating advantage situations. I think that a lot of people in basketball, they've always known about, like, all right, 3-on-2, 2-on-1 in the fast break. That stuff happens in the half court every possession. If I drive it and I beat my defender off the ball and I swing it to somebody, now it's 3-on-2 on the weak side. Can you make the right decision out of that? And that's play that always comes to mind. That's what Draymond Green did. They would blitz Steph off the high middle every time he'd throw it to him, and he was the best player in the NBA playing 4-on-3 or 3-on-2. It was either an assist or in a hockey. So getting players in that decision-making position in their workouts in the half court of reading 3-on-2, 2-on-1 positions instead of just transition, like, okay, 2-on-1 transition, that happens too, but that's much easier than in the half court because it's bigger windows. So just trying to put him in those positions.
Yeah, it's a Rockets podcast, so I don't want to say too many nice things about Draymond Green, but there's one play that always comes to mind, right? Is he broke up that it was either a 1-on-3 or a 1-on-4 fast break, and it looked like everybody else on the Warriors gave up on that possession. Draymond gets back, gets a stop by himself, like 1-on-3 in transition, and that was his decision making. He stopped the right guy, stunted at the other guy, got a contest up, and it was a beautiful play. I mean, he's an all-world defender for his decision making, and then also the physical attributes that he's been gifted with. But before we get you out of here, Stephon, I want to circle back to, because we talked about him a little bit early on, but a guy like Jae'Sean Tate, who, you look at him and he really is, for all intents and purposes, he's such a complete player. I think that, there's one area that I think a lot of people have commented on, myself included, where we'd really like to see him make a significant jump and become a little bit more consistent with his outside shot. But past that, like, what are some of the things that, you kind of plan to be able to work on him with, and things that, areas of his game where, when you've got such a well-rounded guy like that, it's not like there's not room for improvement, but he's got such a high baseline for everything that he does on the court already. Where do you go with a guy like that?
Well, Jae'Sean's going to do multiple things every night. Doesn't matter who he's playing. Doesn't matter what the other team does. He's going to finish in the paint. He's going to defend. He's going to rebound. And he's going to rotate on defensively every single night. And, I think for him, he hovered like at 31% from three. I think I agree with that. He needs to hover more towards 35. 36 would be great, because then what are you going to do on the closeouts? Because you're not going to close out hard.
No.
He's going to get put 2 feet in the paint. But me and Jae'Sean always talk about is like, we don't want our so-called bag as a basketball player to be wide. We want it to be deep. You're not going to be great at everything. LeBron James is not great at everything. Kevin Durant's not great at everything. Like, your greatest players in the world aren't great at everything. They have their weaknesses too. They just continue to deepen what they're good at. So for Jae'Sean and us, it's not like, all right, Jae'Sean, you're going to turn into an isolation top of the key. You have what is really good in the NBA, top 1% skill, with another couple other skills that can be top 10%. And that can make you a really, really, really good player and be more importantly, a winning player on winning teams that can result you in creating whatever legacy you want to create. But we always talk about not being wide. We don't want to be good at 6 things. That's not what the NBA is, because if you're good at it, someone's already great at it. And that's the difference between college and the NBA is you can't be okay or good at something and that's what you do. Like, sure, it could be your 3rd or 4th thing you do, but it can't be like, okay, think about the other circle. What if Jae'Sean's best thing he did was shoot threes and you said he shot 31%? He might not have a job.
Yeah.
Like, he's got 2 other, maybe 3 other things he does outstanding. So I talk about all our players is we want to get that bag deep and not so wide, and continue to smash what we're really good at and make that even deeper, comparable to being good at, 7 or 8 things.
I love that. That is incredibly insightful, Stephon. This conversation has been a delight. I feel like I've learned a lot about you, about just, how this whole process works and how these players, are striving to get better every single day. Before we get you out of here, is there anything you want to plug? You let people track you down at, anything off the top of your head?
And no, like I said, I'm blessed with a bunch of, good dudes. And a lot of people around me that are supportive and coachable and allow us to, pull out of them what they didn't know was already there, and allow them to, create opportunities for themselves on the court and off the court they didn't think was possible. But I know you got my Twitter handle there. My Instagram is at Dig Deep Basketball. You can basically reach me on those 2 platforms I use most often. But no, I appreciate you having me on, and hopefully you guys will have a better year. It's a relearning process, right? But that's part of it. You guys had a great run, great run. But I think you guys are on the way up. I like Silas. I think it's going to go in the right direction for sure.
I think so too. And, all we can hope for is that whoever they pick with this number 2 overall selection is going to, get brought into the right culture and get Silas to coach him up and everything. But Stephon, really appreciate you taking the time to be here with us today.
All right, man. I appreciate it. Thanks.
All right, that is going to do it for today's episode. As always, thank you so much for watching, for listening. Be sure to subscribe to our brand new YouTube channel. We are very close to breaking 1,000 subscribers. Be sure to subscribe to Apple, Spotify, all those different podcast subscribers. Listen to the podcast. We would sincerely appreciate it. But for today's episode, that is going to do it. As always, thank you so much for listening, watching, all that good stuff. We look forward to having you back for our very next episode of Locked On Rockets, your daily podcast home for everything Houston Rockets basketball.
Thank you.